FBI reports about anything out of this world are extremely rare, and today we have a number of intriguing cases to discuss with y'all. Ranging from the Majestic 12 to the Springfield UFO case and more, it's time to break down some info that was once classified. In late July of 1947, a woman in Illinois reported to the FBI office in Springfield that she had found a flying disc in her front yard. The Springfield special agent in charge informed FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover that the alleged flying disc was obtained, and it was apparently the concoction of some juveniles in the area. It was an old wooden platter which had assembled on it a silver plate, a spark plug, a timer, and some old brass tubing. No doubt this was somebody's idea of a prank. Now, while most folks might be quick to dismiss the story as a hoax, how many times throughout history has the FBI or the Pentagon or really any government body dismissed legitimate findings in an attempt to discredit true believers and cover stuff up? Y'all remember that Roswell was first called a weather balloon, right? More on that later, but after seeing these photos, this UFO seems pretty real to me. Speaking about the year 1947, that was a hell of a year for UFOs. We will never know exactly what private pilot Kenneth A. Arnold saw while flying past Mount Rainier on June 24th of that year. What he said he saw and spent the rest of his life trying to explain added the words flying saucers to the vocabularies of millions of people around the world. That June afternoon, Arnold took off from Washington on his way to an air show in Oregon with a planned fuel stop in Yakima. He was an experienced pilot with 4,000 hours of flying time logged and a member of an Idaho search and rescue unit. He was piloting a single-engined Call Air A-2 light airplane, and the skies were clear and the winds were light. He planned to detour a little bit en route. Why? Well, it was because a U.S. Marine Corps commando transport had crashed with about 32 Marines on board somewhere near his eastward course, and Arnold wanted to find the downed aircraft and claim the $5,000 reward. So shortly before 3 p.m., as Arnold circled his airplane about 20 miles west of the mountain, searching for the plane, he saw a bright flash to the northeast. He said that it startled him. He just assumed it was some military lieutenant with a shiny P-51, and he had caught the reflection of the sun hitting the wings of his plane. After more flashes appeared, Arnold ruled out a nearby Douglas DC-4 airliner as the source. He claimed they emanated from 9 shiny objects flying in a weird formation about 5 miles long. Arnold described each object as circular, about 100 feet across, with no tail. The objects periodically flipped, banked, and weaved side to side, kind of like the tail of a kite. The formation was crossing in front of Arnold, and he decided to time its passage from one mountain to the other. He calculated the objects were flying at about 1,200 miles per hour, 2 times faster than any airplane known at the time. Some months would pass before Colonel Chuck E. Yeager flew the Bell X-1 rocket airplane to a speed of 700 miles per hour, if we're talking like in reference. That also exceeded the speed of sound. Arnold has repeatedly denied that he initially described the objects as flying saucers, but as Megan Garber wrote in her June 15th article for The Atlantic, stories of the time credit him with using the term saucer and pie pan in his description of the objects he had seen. He told his story to reporters Bill Baquette and Nolan Skiff of the East Oregonian newspaper the day after the sighting, and Skiff used the words saucer-like aircraft when he published the short print article that same day. After suggesting to Arnold that a wire story might generate comments from the military on flights of experimental aircraft that could explain Arnold's sighting, Baquette published a brief story picked up by the Associated Press wire service using the words 9 bright saucer-like objects to describe what Arnold said he saw. By late afternoon, the tale that he had seen flying saucers had spread nationwide. A radio host interviewing Arnold on June 26th noted how rapidly the story was shared, saying the Associated and United Press all over the nation have been after this story. It's been on every newscast, over the air, and in every newspaper he knows of. The Chicago Sun ran the headline, "Supersonic flying saucers sighted by Idaho pilot." Arnold became a media sensation, but he didn't want to be. He didn't like the attention. In 1988, 2 FBI offices received similar versions of a memo titled Operation Majestic 12, claiming to be a highly classified government document. The memo appeared to be a briefing for newly elected President Eisenhower on a secret committee created to exploit a recovery of an extraterrestrial aircraft and cover up this work from public examination. Now, yes, an Air Force investigation did essentially determine the document was fake. But once again, was it actually a fake, or did the government just discredit another UFO expert to cover their traces and prevent real information from getting out? Majestic 12 remains popular among a lot of UFO theorists, and it's been in a lot of different pop culture things. It's pretty real to me. Ever hear about Classification 114, alien property custodian matter? So this classification was established in 1945 when the Department of Justice directed the FBI to investigate cases brought against the alien property custodian under the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917 and the First War Powers Act of 1941. Most investigations examined the ownership and control of unvested property and of vested property that was subject to claims and litigation. Additionally, the FBI investigated suspected misuse or misapplication by private citizens of property under the jurisdiction of the Office of Alien Property. Now, this office became part of the Civil Division, Department of Justice in 1946, and that division initiated FBI investigations into this area and received the results of such investigations. By 1960, investigative activity in this classification was pretty low, and it was declared obsolete in 1972. Subsequent alien property investigations were to be opened under Classification 63, miscellaneous civil suits. So I went to go read the documents myself, but the FBI website doesn't have them all released, since they fall under the Yahtzee War Crimes and Japanese Imperial Government Disclosure Acts. We're talking all that stuff from 1945. And if you know what a lot of folks know about the evil German dictator and his beliefs in alien tech, one should be wondering if this is an extension of Operation Paperclip, which successfully covered up bringing over and putting Yahtzee folks to use in the States. So what else is being covered up? If you've ever watched The X-Files or other sci-fi shows like it, you might think that investigating unexplained phenomena is one of the FBI's responsibilities, right up there with extremists, espionage, white-collar crime, so forth, so on. Well, fun fact, the FBI was only occasionally involved in investigating the possibility of UFOs and extraterrestrials over the years. And by occasionally, I mean rarely. The first FBI investigations we are aware of began the summer of 1947, the time of the now well-known incident in Roswell, New Mexico. The rash of reports of flying objects, some shaped like flapjacks, saucers, discs, and even a large circular saw that supposedly hit a lightning rod on top of a church started to surface and make headlines across the nation. Trust me folks, there isn't anything additional about that church story, not even a photo that could be found, so if you know anything about it, please let us know in the comments because there's a great story somewhere. Concerned citizens reported many of these strange sightings to the FBI, which wasn't surprising, given that the FBI had investigated airline crashes such as the Hindenburg disaster in 1937 and aerial dangers like the balloon explosives launched by Japan towards the US Pacific Northwest near the end of the big mass extinction event of the 1930s and 40s. The FBI's lead role in protecting the homeland during the war was also well known, and the Bureau remained front and center in ensuring national security as the Cold War began to unfold. Initially, it wasn't super clear how UFO sightings should be handled. We're going back to that FBI director, Hoover. He recognized that the Air Force, then part of the US Army, clearly had the lead in such issues, but he did want his agents to investigate any discs recovered for their potential impact on FBI responsibilities. So yeah, the Army did want the FBI's help, at least at first. On July 30th of 1947, the Bureau, at the request of the Army Air Force's intelligence, has agreed to cooperate in the investigation of flying discs. You should investigate each instance which is brought to your attention of a sighting of a flying disc in order to figure out whether or not it is a bona fide sighting, an imaginary one, or a prank. Well, 3 years later, that policy changed. A July 1950 FBI statement said that the jurisdiction and responsibility for investigating flying saucers has been assumed by the United States Air Force. Information received in this matter is immediately turned over to the Air Force, and the FBI does not attempt to investigate these reports or evaluate the information furnished. So from this point on, the FBI's cases on UFOs dropped off dramatically. Neither the public nor the Air Force sought their expertise as they had previously. And finally for today, there's a number of declassified memos showing the FBI displaying significant early interest in the UFOs. So one 1950 memo, Guy Hottel, the head of the FBI's Washington, D.C. field office, relayed an unconfirmed report about 3 disc-shaped craft with crew members resembling humans recovered in New Mexico. So, yes, this is all around Roswell, that 1947. Though the newly formed U.S. Air Force did take the lead, Hoover instructed his agents to verify sightings, if requested. So then we've got this memo, sent in 1947 by an Army general to Hoover, confirms military officials were also taking reports seriously by contacting the FBI to investigate sightings. Declassified CIA documents from the 1940s to 90s show agents were instructed to gather foreign UFO reports, though most described unsubstantiated sightings from press reports rather than direct evidence. Well, that's it for me once again, folks. I've been Alexa, your resident ookie spooky girly. See y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.